back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So it's been a while. I do apologise for the long delay with uploading to my channel. Life got really busy, and also you may notice we're in a new filming location. That's because me and my dad recently spent a whole day just making built-in bookshelves for my books. So they are actually built into the wall and they're all properly supported for once on a decent shelf, and they're all together, which hasn't been the case for about 6 years. Like, my books have been spread out all around the house for years and years and years. So I'm really pleased that all the books now have a home together. There are, how many shelves here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 shelves this side and 3 shelves that side. So there's 8 shelves in total. I do plan on having more shelves in the house fairly soon, so hopefully I might even be able to spread them out so they're not like double layered like they are here, and then you'll be able to see them better. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how the bookshelves came out. I might do a video on that at some point if you guys are interested. Let me know. But yeah, I'm really pleased. My bookshelves have rehomed. That also means the filming location has rehomed. We're in a different room, so I apologise if you can hear sort of strange noises. We're closer to the road that goes past my house, and it's a busy road, so if you can hear random trucks and motorbikes and things like that, I hope it's not too loud. Fingers crossed. I'll do what I can in the edit to reduce the noise. Anyway, why am I here? I didn't stop reading whilst I went off and had a break from YouTube. I have still been reading. I've still been reading Spoofbo books, which is what this video is about, and my next 2 will also be about Spoofbo, but I've also been reading regular books, so let me know if you're interested in kind of a catch-up of like what I've read so far. I'd love to update you guys. Let's dive into what this video is about. So I am reviewing my finalists for SBFBO, and I'm super excited to do so. I've now read all the other 9 finalists along with my own one, and I've now put them into a ranking of my personal ranking for this year's SBFBO. And I will say, this year was a lot more varied than previous years that I've participated in SBFBO. In the past, I've had really high scores for a lot of the finalists, and this year was a real range of scores. So what I'm going to do is I will do 3 videos. This will be the first of those 3, and this one will talk about my 10th, 9th and 8th position books. Then I'll do a video which covers my 7th up to my 4th, and then I will do another video, final video, which will be my 3rd place through to my 1st place for SBFBO this year. And I would love to hear if you guys have read any of these or you want to based on the reviews. Don't just take my word for what I think of it. I will link the blog page below, which links to all the different reviewers' reviews, because there are lots of opinions about this. All these books, so I'd love for you to go and check out their reviews as well, and yeah, let me know what you think. Are any of these books really up your street? So my 10th place book for this year was By Blood by Salt, and I just didn't gel with this book right from the get-go. One of the things that I found really difficult about this book in particular was that it is so incredibly slow. And when I say that, I mean the pacing of this book is so slow. It is a really slow beginning. The middle section got a little bit more interesting, but overall I just found this really quite tiresome. I also feel like even though I do like a slow burn plot sometimes, there wasn't enough else going on, like characterization, storyline, other things like world building. I just wasn't feeling any of them, to be honest. And even though I got all the way through because I was determined to at least finish it and see if it improved, I just never felt a spark of excitement with this book. I just found myself really slogging through this. So the main character that we're following is called Azalea, and he is a jackal in this world, and that effectively puts him as an outcast in the world. He is looked down upon by pretty much everyone else around him. He's not allowed to participate in certain things, activities, or hold rank or anything like that, and he's generally just frowned upon just for who he is. Having said all that, he is a little bit of an anomaly when it comes to jackals, because even though he's not technically allowed to hold rank, he does actually participate in a battalion, and he does have a lot of people in that battalion kind of looking up to him. So he's almost like a ranked supervisor, even though in name he's not. I would say that Azalea is a really interesting character when you first meet him. I was actually pretty intrigued about his character and where on earth things could be going with him. but I just found that as the story went on, I didn't connect in the way I wanted to. He does have a little spark to him, and that he defies authority and he does things out of the norm, and he stands by what he believes in, even when it's going to get him in trouble. The other main plot line that we're going through in this story is the Tsar. This is another character who Azalea comes across at one point in the book and kind of continues to know. And this is a really mysterious race. We don't really know anything about them, except that they are maybe sort of demonic. They maybe have powers. There's a lot to the maybes in this book. Like, you don't really know what's true and what's not, because no one else in this world has ever really seen and encountered them. So the Tsar as a general kind of race is just a mystery, and yet the battalion that we're following is able to capture a Tsar, and they are then trying to uncover the secrets of this creature that they just don't know what to do with. The whole battalion is sent on this essentially suicide mission to bring one back to the king, and they try and do that, and along the way all sorts of disasters happen. It seems like a suicide mission. It seems like something that is never going to work, and actually the king's brother goes along with the battalion, so there's some sort of political maneuvering here as well. But I must say that actually for the whole story, the most interesting thing I found was the Tsar and the character of the Tsar, who we do actually get a POV from later on, which was quite interesting. And I think it was certainly kind of eye-opening to see that the Tsar is constantly misjudged and misunderstood about who they are and what they can do and why they do things, the motivations, because of the distance in culture. And it's largely about that, I suppose, the misinterpretations that come with kind of two cultures clashing. I thought that was probably the most interesting part for me personally. The main problem I had was just that the whole book felt so slow, and the characters, even though we do get time with them, they just didn't do enough to connect with me personally, and I found myself really quite bored by the story, which was a real shame. In fact, I nearly gave up on this book so many times. I thought maybe I'll just give up. It's obviously not for me, it's not working. But because it was a finalist, I thought maybe something redeeming happens and maybe the plot will turn around. It didn't, for me at least. So I really, really, I feel like this was just completely the wrong target market for me. I'm clearly not the audience that this book is going to appeal to. There are other judges who it did appeal to, clearly, because it made it to a finalist. But for me, it was awful. I did not enjoy this book. That doesn't mean that you guys won't. So do go and check out the other judges and see if their reviews kind of spark your interest more for this. But what did I give it? I gave it a 2 out of 5, which effectively makes it a 4 out of 10 for SPFBO ranking. I nearly gave it a 1, but there is some good writing here. It just focused in completely the wrong way for me, and therefore it wasn't a book that I could get on board with in any way. I really struggled with this. So I gave it a 2 out of 5, 4 out of 10, and that is my ranking for that book. The next one, which is my 9th place book, The Tenacious Tale of Tanner the Tender Sword, which is quite a mouthful to say, and I'm sad that this one came in 9th place for me. It's actually kind of a children's book, or at least it's certainly aimed at children in some ways. And I really wanted to like this. It's also got illustrations throughout the book, which I really did enjoy. I liked that. It felt a little bit like an insight into a graphic novel or something like that at times, which was really cool. So I do think there are some really nice things about this. But again, the story just really fell flat for me. Now, this was a step above the previous one for me. Certainly I enjoyed it a lot more than that, I will say that. But again, I did find this a real struggle to get through, and I was pushing myself to read to the end rather than kind of reading for enjoyment. So this is the story of Tanner, who is a would-be champion, a would-be adventurer. She's young and she's desperate to go out into the world and kind of seek her fortune and make her name in the world. And she goes on this quest with a chronicler who is called Galdefort Quillpen. And Galdefort is again another young companion of hers. He is very, very grumpy, and Tanner is probably the most optimistic person I've ever encountered. So, of course, there is quite a clash there. There's a lot of eye rolling, a lot of poking fun at one another, a lot of teasing. This probably would have worked really well for someone who's very interested in like humor through their books, and I think for some of the judges maybe it did work for them. For me, I didn't like it at all. I found myself rolling my eyes at the jokes rather than getting on board and laughing and enjoying it. I found it quite a struggle at times to just want to read this one. Which was a shame because I think there was some potential here. The story certainly was more interesting than the previous book. I felt like there was actually a clear storyline of them going to find an adventure, and they encounter all kinds of crazy characters along the way, which was really quite fun to see at times. But I think there was just something missing for me. Um, I think a part of it is that I felt like some sections of the book maybe would have worked better for young readers, and some felt a little aged. And then I also feel like it just didn't quite have some heart to it, some real believability. I was just missing that suspense of belief, I suppose. I wanted to be immersed in this and feel like I was there and I was living it with them, and I just couldn't get that. It just felt like it wasn't coming through in the way I wanted. I didn't believe the characters or the story at all, which was a shame. I also do think that because it's a children's book, it's pitched that way. The plot is quite simple, and so there wasn't anything super complex to sink your teeth into here. There wasn't anything particularly jaw dropping as a moment. I do think there are hints at wider book avenues for the authors to go into the wider world at points, and we do have sort of snippets of information that sound like there could be a bigger series here. But for me, in this particular book, I just wanted a bit more heart and a bit more characterization that would kind of draw me into the plot line. And I also think that the characters and the clash of the characters is supposed to be really fun and humorous, but for me it was very grating. I just found them really irritating and annoying, and I don't think you're meant to find them that way. I think you're meant to find them charming and witty and funny and silly, and for me it just was really quite jarring and quite irritating, and I just didn't like them. The other thing that was quite a pet peeve of mine, I suppose, is onomatopoeia. Now, this can work really, really well in kids' books, but I would say it works a lot better in young kids' books, and this one felt more pitched at the older child who could read independently and was reading on their own, enjoying the stories. For me, this one just had so many instances of the word bang, boom, crash, wallop, all of these things where I just didn't need it every time. Like, it was too much. It felt like the emphasis on this onomatopoeia was so frustrating because I didn't need it to be all caps spelled out in the middle of the page. Now, maybe a younger reader would enjoy that, but it felt excessive to me in this book. It felt like there was too much of that going on, and I was just a little bit bored of that by the end. So the plot line, as I said, it is about going on this adventure, finding a quest. We also have a subplot of Galdefort's aunt has gone missing, and maybe they'll be able to find out some clues about her as they go. We do have looks into witches and sentient birds and creatures, and it's all very silly and funny, which I do think works for this book, and I do think was a fun part of it and a fun element, but I think that got overshadowed by some of the things that I didn't like so much. I think this one actually did remind me quite a lot of Brandon Sanderson's book, The Frugal Wizard's Guide to Medieval England, or something like that. I think it's called something like that. I'll put a picture of that on the screen. But yeah, that book didn't work for me for very similar reasons. Now, that one is an adult book, but I also think they have strong parallels between them. And I think the way that was written, just I didn't like it at all. And I think the same thing, unfortunately, applied here, where the humour just hit so wrong for me. It just didn't play out as it should have. And it just was really eye-rolly, cringy. Not for me. So unfortunately, I cannot endorse that one. It just didn't work for me. It was better than the previous one, so I did end up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Very middle of the road. Very much not my usual cup of tea, and I can see why. So that's 5 out of 10 for SBFBO, and yeah, just didn't love this one, I'm afraid. It just didn't work for me. Now, number 8 in my ranking is The Gates of Hope, and this one thankfully has gone up quite a lot in my estimation. I did enjoy this book. I did have a lot of things that were fun about it, but there were also some things that were a slight drawback. So it's got a much better rating, thankfully. It's a big story. It's one that takes a little while to get going, I would say, and certainly The beginning feels largely like you're setting up the planets and the worlds that this is across, and you're setting up all these characters. There's quite an expansive amount of characters and worlds that we're looking at here. So it does feel like it takes a little while to get going and introduce you to all of those elements. It spans various moons and also the planet of Lius, or Lys, I'm not sure how you say that one. And we're following different characters on both the moon and the planet. So we're following 3 different characters as kind of the main characters. And I would say that it starts off incredibly slow, and I found that I was enjoying one of the characters far more than the other 2 at the beginning, and it took a long time for my enjoyment with the other 2 to kind of catch up to where that first one was. Darren's story is the one that I found the most easy to connect with. His story focuses on an animal bond, which is always good because you can kind of get that characterization coming through, they get personality. And I also felt like he was quite a sensitive soul at times. He had a lot of pondering that he did, and he really thought about his effect on the world and the magic that he was using, and what that meant for the wider world. And I really enjoyed just kind of uncovering not only his story, but also the story that was this secret organization which he kind of integrates into. I feel like he really adapts well, he takes a lot of things in his stride, and Star, who is his animal companion, was just a great addition to the story. We really can't go wrong with sort of animal companions in stories. I just really, really love to see that bond growing, and it just gives you some like human elements to these characters who have magic and can do crazy things. So I liked to see their bond develop and grow, and I really rated that. Darren kind of has this magical musical ability where certain notes are kind of keyed into whistles, and you can use the whistles to blow these notes and then perform magic using that. So it's a bit of an interesting twist on magic, and something I hadn't really seen particularly before, so that was a nice thing to kind of uncover as we went through the story. And there's quite a few different types of magic and ways that magic works in this solar system, so each character kind of has a different way of interacting with and using magic. One of the other characters was Surin, and her character took time to grow on me, I would say. She felt quite naive to me for a lot of the book, which is frustrating as a reader when you're just like, oh, honestly, come on now. She didn't have a lot of understanding of magic at first, and she has to go on this big journey to kind of kickstart her life. She's desperate to do what her mother's done and follow in her family footsteps, but she doesn't really know. She hasn't asked the right questions about like, what does it mean to have this magic? What does it mean to learn in this place? And I felt like she just was naive going into everything, and that led her into a bit of trouble, and generally just made her a bit of an irritating character at times to read too. I feel like she also goes through a lot of sadness and emotion with this story. Some bad things happen to her family, and she really is affected by that, and a lot of her plot becomes, you know, trying to solve these problems. I think personally I just found her a little bit lacking in sort of personality. She wasn't giving a lot to the story. Um, if anything, she was sucking out of the story, and she was a little bit of a bore at times. So I think that's probably my major complaint with the book, is that this character I found quite irritating, and I found difficult to kind of get interested in that part of the story. And because there's the 3 main characters, and you know, we focus fairly evenly on them, I just feel like I wasn't super enticed by this bit of the story. I think it also took her a long time to get into doing anything about her predicament, and I felt like she was kind of pushed into it, so she just doesn't feel like she has any ability to think for herself, and it takes a long time for her to get anywhere. Finally, we have Alyssa, who is this character who's closed off from the other 2. She's been on this moon away from them, and she's been really looked down upon for having purple hair there, because there's this sort of subsect of people who have been basically enslaved for years and years, and she is part of that group. The moon is ruled by these aliens called the Aldrin, and they have effectively enslaved her people over the generations. The people with purple hair have a sort of magic. Now, she doesn't know that she has this magic, and she needs to learn over the course of the book like how to use it and what it can do and her true potential, but they know, and they are suppressing it as much as they can. Her main storyline focuses on her kind of encountering this crystal and activating her powers as a result of it, and then needing to flee the moon as quickly as possible and get away from the aliens who are going to hunt her, and also find a way to save the rest of her people who are trapped and hidden away from this race as much as they can be. I would say the overarching theme here is kind of aliens or Aldwin versus humans, and there's definitely a big element of that there, but it only kind of gets going towards the later stage of the book, so you kind of see all the setup happening in the first bit, and then once we get further through, and especially the ending of the book, feels like it's setting up for a much bigger thing to happen in later books in the series. It's clearly got more to come. The planet and the moon were once connected by a gate, hence the title, but at the moment no gate exists between them, and so it's kind of a conversation or a look into, will the gate be brought back and how, and what would that mean for these relationships that have built over generations and crumbled over generations? Would there be conflict, and how would that be dealt with? So certainly a lot of questions opened up by the plot line and where it goes, and especially the end of this book feels like it is just building to bigger things, shall we say. So there's a lot of potential here. I think I enjoyed it a lot more by the end of the book than I did at the start, and I was certainly much more invested in the characters by the end. But was I like super drawn in by them the whole way through? No. It took a long time to get there. And so for that reason, I gave it a 3.25, which works out at 6.5 out of 10 for SPFBO. I certainly found this one much more enjoyable than the others. The world building, the magic, the characters, they all had a lot more going on, and the plot is really interesting, especially in that latter half, but it was slow going. Those are my 10th, 9th and 8th place for SPFBO X or SPFBO 10. I'd love to hear what you guys think of these. Do they sound interesting to you? Do check out the other reviews that I've mentioned below, and let me know if you're going to read any of these, because although they weren't my personal favourites, I do think there's a lot of good parts to it, and maybe they will appeal a lot more to you guys. So let me know if you read any of them, and I look forward to chatting to you in the comments below. Bye all!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.